In the last lecture, we learned what is spagyric or spagyric. In this lecture, we're going to learn a little more about spagyric and how to apply it to spagyrically prepared herbs in laboratory alchemy. For example, normally alchemists will try to create things with herbs first, because with herbs they were able to create powerful remedies along the way. These first experiments with plants lead the way to the lesser articulation of what is called the plant stone, which is very similar to the great articulation which produces the philosopher's stone. Before we talk about the easy method, I want to describe the process in another more detailed fashion, because I think it more clearly illustrates the separation of the three essentials. Just to give you an example, for this case we're going to be using rosemary. Let us say that we have selected the sun rule herb rosemary to work upon. With an eye to the sun and moon disposition, we gather some fresh rosemary. We chop it finely and place it into a flask with a little water to make a paste. We let it stand a while to loosen up, then steam is injected into the herb paste and the hot vapors arising are captured in a cooling condenser. This distillate contains water from the steam, and floating on the water will form a layer of oil, the essential oil of rosemary. This oil is what we collect. This is the first of the three essentials and represents what the alchemists call the alchemical sulfur of the plant. The oil is a material analog or a vehicle for the subtle principle of the sulfur, the soul or character of the plant. Our rosemary remains in the flask as a watery mush, and we allow this to ferment. In fermentation, the plant dies and gives us what we call the ghost. That is to say, the life force departs into the watery medium. After fermentation, we can distill from this mush a volatile liquid which the ancients call the alchemical mercury. This volatile liquid, which is mainly alcohol, carries the spirit of the plant, the life force. Today, as you may well know, we still buy spirits at the liquor store, and this is where the term comes from. Remember, these physical materials are a reflection of the spiritual forces in nature. The alcohol contains the life force as its body in this realm. The alcohol is not the spirit, but merely a vehicle of the spirit in the plant world, a focal point. We now have separation of the three essentials: the oil of sulfur, the mercury as alcohol, and the salt, which still lies hidden in the extracted rosemary residue. The next step of the process is the purification of our separated essentials. The mercury and the sulfur are redistilled a number of times until they are highly refined in the physical sense, but also exalted in the spiritual sense. You might be familiar with homeopathy. In homeopathy, sometimes we will dilute medications or preparations, of course always natural, more and more and more. And at the beginning, doctors and philosophers thought that when you dilute something, you actually will make it weaker. But we have found out that actually is the contrary. In homeopathy, the more that you refine the spirit of a herb or plant, and you dilute more and more, the stronger and better that remedy will work in the human body. Now, to obtain the salt, the extracted plant material is dried and then incinerated to an ash. This purges the accumulated impurities and structural components which protected the plant in its growing environment. They have served their purpose but are no longer necessary. The light gray to white ash we obtain is dissolved in water, filtered, and the liquid is then evaporated, leaving a purified white crystalline salt. This salt represents the alchemical salt, the true body of the plant. With the separation and purification of our three essentials complete, we now move to the final step of the spagyric process, that of cohovation. Cohovation is the last step of the spagyric process. In a sort of resurrection, the finely powdered salt is saturated with the sulfur and awakened into an activity by addition of its life force, the mercury. After a period of digestion, our elixir is complete. The alchemists consider such preparations to be exalted and evolved living medicines, able to express the plant's true healing potentials, not only on the body, but at the level of the soul and the spirit as well. As you can see here, I have included sort of a picture that's more what we will do today with organic chemistry, closer to what we call a steam distillation, in which oils are extracted from plants. If you have ever bought an essential oil from a massage store or online, you probably don't know that it takes thousands and thousands of petals and a lot of energy from hundreds and thousands of plants and flowers to be able to make just about maybe 20 milligrams or a drop. That's why some flowers are extinct. Now let's learn more about the easy method. The easy method, which I normally had used a lot before, sometimes called the Falk method. And some people call it tincturing, because what you're going to be doing with the easy method is probably going to be doing tinctures, herbal tinctures. Everyone can do this, and you probably have most of the materials at home. The life force that animates me is the same as that within each one of you. The spirit we distill from one plant is largely the same as we will obtain from distilling any other fermented plant. That being the case, we can easily obtain our first essential from a local liquor store where they sell spirits. There's a couple different ways of doing this. You can buy spirits from the store. I normally like to do tinctures with Grey Goose. If you want to spend a lot on a tincture that's going to last for a long time. Normally, Grey Goose or vodka and whiskey work better than other. Also, Everclear, which is called grain alcohol, which is 90% alcohol, works great for tinctures. Just make sure that it is legal in your state, as some states have restrictions. Please make sure that you only use portable alcohol. If you have never attempted tinctures, and we will also talk about chemistry and organic chemistry before, Please be careful. Do not use denatured alcohol or methanol, as this is poisonous. We take the plant that you want to work with and we grind it to a fine powder. Some people like to use grinders that are electrical. I don't like to use that because what you're doing is you're killing the spirit of the plant by the grinding of the gears, of the metallic gears, and you pretty much are taking all the energy that plant had. I like to use a pestle and something you can do macerated. You can also chop it with a knife. That's always better if you do it by hand. In any case, you place the powder on a jar and you pour your alcohol over the powder to cover it by 1 or 2 finger width. So you want to make sure that your alcohol goes all the way up. Make sure that you only leave about 1 or 2 fingers. You don't want to leave more than 1 finger really. The reason being because you don't want your tincture to go to waste because of oxygen and mold. You can place a piece of plastic wrap over the top and screw the lid on tightly. I like, before I even do the preparations, because I'm kind of a nerd and from my chemistry background, I like to clean my bottles. You can boil the bottles, make sure that your preparations stick for years. You can have a tincture that is 3, 4, 5 years long. Seal the jar into a warm place directly on the sunlight, and I recommend that you let it stand at least for 2 weeks. I normally take mine for 6 weeks. Make sure that you shake it every day. After the 2 weeks are up, you will see that the alcohol has become deadly color. We want to collect this extract, and a good way to do is to pour the entire contents into an old nylon stocking placed into a second jar that is clean. You also can go to the store and buy cheesecloth. Wearing rubber gloves, squeeze the nylon to obtain as much of the liquid as possible, then seal the jar and let it stand. This liquid extract contains the combined mercury and sulfur of the plant. As you can see, we are almost there. Now take the extracted plant residue and place it into a fire-resistant dish outside. Touch a match to the herb and let it burn down to ash. Grind the ash very fine and return it to the dish. Then place it over a gas burner or in the oven under broil to make it as a light gray to white as possible. This ash contains the salt principle of the plant. Quickly grind the ash while still warm, then add it to the extract of the plant. You will collect earlier. Again, seal the jar and let it stand in a warm place for at least a week. Shake the jar daily very well. At the end of the week, you will filter the liquid through a coffee filter and let it stand in a clean glass container for about 48 hours to see if any more insolubles settle out. Decant, that means let go of the clarified extract into dropper bottles for use. This is now a simple spagyric elixir containing the 3 essentials of the plant in an exultant form and able to express the plant's truest and most powerful healing potentials on the various levels of our constitution. Remember that in each of these operations, if we can work with conscious intent and create a sacred space to work from, the more effective their end result will be. Everything is about intention when you're talking about herbs. You also want to keep within astrological timings which are favorable to the plant as much as you are able. In the next lecture, we're going to be talking about the creation of the 7 basics. I see you then.